So stress. Stress is a thing we all have become best friends with somehow for some reason. And it drives me insane how much of a hold it has on everyone. Like for me in my life, I've had plenty of anxiety, especially just growing up, like just being a kid and being nervous about presentations or not having that much confidence because you didn't really have any not really having any friends or not really having it really did feel like a lot of belief in or even just my own like confidence and like having my own thing versus just doing what everyone else is telling me to do kind of stuff. And it made me very anxious and especially just try and like stay in my comfort zone. So it literally was just my life was like handcrafted to make it as easy as possible. And the more where I realized that I was making myself more stressed out by not trying than I would have been if I was trying in the first place. Like that's kind of the misconception I think a lot of times is that stress and all that stuff is like a bad thing and you gotta stay in the comfort zone or whatever. But the problem is life happens in ways that you can't anticipate and predict. So you're gonna be stressed or anxious no matter what, pretty much every day. See, and I think a lot of people think purely in terms of like something like work being like the main stressor and then you got da da da. But stressors, if you try and avoid your problems and if you try to stay comfortable, if you try to just do what's predictable, stressors will come in every aspect of your life. Whether it's family, whether it's with friends, whether it's with relationship, whether it's with work, moving, even just driving, even just like going like if you have like a pet and stuff like that, like all these things can be major, major stressors. And so what they'll do is all compound to make it so that you're constantly stressed in some form or fashion, whether really stressed or pretty stressed. And so it could be a weekend that you literally have nothing planned, and yet you could still be stressed out and just be like, oh, I gotta clean the house, or oh, I gotta do this thing, or I gotta do this. And you never allow yourself to rest because you're so scared of your problems. You're so scared of knowing who you are and dealing with the things that you've like kind of tried to suppress since you were a kid that you're trying to do anything to avoid having those moments where you're bored and where you're like literally where you're sitting in whatever that feeling is. You just want as many distractions. And I think distractions and stress go hand in hand. Distractions and stress are like best BFFs. They're BFFs for life. You never quite see someone more stressed out than when they're constantly distracted because what happens is you constantly are doing stuff and you're constantly avoiding. The more and more like especially I've noticed this especially on my like Sundays or whatever, or any days where I allow myself to be bored and to not know and to not constantly fill my days with stuff and to not constantly be on my phone scrolling and stuff like that. Like, don't get me wrong, I listen to music all the time and do stuff, but to have the ability to be in here and to be in those things, which I feel like is never more whatever than on the weekends when it's kind of your obviously certain things have whatever and as you have like family and kids stuff like that time gets eaten up but like especially when you're just by yourself, like single and all that stuff, those times those are really important. Those weekends are super important and a super big indicator of how it's going to be the rest of your life. Because if you're getting stressed and doing all that stuff now, like imagine like then you suddenly have a spouse, have kids, your job gets more and more demanding, and suddenly all this stuff. And as you get older, your body just kind of starts breaking down, not working nearly as well. So suddenly you're not able to do nearly as much. Your energy is a lot less. That kind of stuff eats away at you. And I think a lot of times what I see is that people do anything they can to put off all their problems, even though they're probably deep down aware of this kind of stuff, and kind of stay in this comfort zone, stay in these like little whatever spot, and then the second they go out of it in any form or fashion, even if it's just like, oh, there's traffic on the way to the grocery store, and now I'm gonna be show up later for this, then I want it, just little things that you can't really control. Obviously, I guess you can control by showing up earlier, but little things like that that are just gonna happen suddenly like derail your day. And I think a lot of this is unnecessary, and a lot of it just comes down to the difference of being present and being everywhere, all like being all over the place. Because a lot of times you could bounce between being like thinking far in the future, like be like, oh shoot, like I got to do this thing tomorrow, or oh, I wonder how this person is feeling about this thing, or whatever thing it is. I had it a ton with presentations. Like I was so scared about when a presentation was coming up, whatever, the entire day would get derailed because of it. And then, or you could be thinking in the past, thinking about, oh shoot, like regretting things, or oh I was so dumb when I did this, or oh they probably think I'm so whatever, because and so you're constantly bouncing between and you avoid the thing that is really where life happens and in the present. And I think in the present, when you're really able to just be in it, a lot of the stress anxiety of the life that we kind of attach to it kind of just dissipates, because a lot of life and a lot of it peace and a lot of all that kind of stuff, it is just found in just the moment versus it being anywhere all that complicated. Like really, it's not that complicated. Life is made more complicated by adding stuff to make to, and I'm trying to piece it together in the right way, but I feel like life, a lot of ways, it is complicated stuff like that, but we make it way more complicated than it has to be because we're avoiding ourselves, and in the process, create all this stuff that takes up our time and energy that is just against the point. And those things may not be bad things on paper, but it's a lot of stuff that we're just using to try and like put all these walls between us and our problems. And that makes us more stressed and anxious because we're constantly balancing all these things that we just did just to avoid ourselves versus just being scared enough and having the courage to just face and deal with our problems and to move on and to be able to go through life, taking it day by day and learning and growing and seeing what life has for us versus it being a thing where we're trying to force life to be something that it may or may not be. And then we get stressed out whenever it doesn't match up correctly with that correctly. And all this kind of stuff is, I'm sure it sounds like whatever, but I've so rarely seen this like actually put into work. In obviously work is the biggest one, but even when it comes to like little family stuff, or when it comes to being in traffic and like you're like, oh shoot, like this is taking longer. You know, I'm just gonna sit, listen to music, windows down, and just hang out and just kind of go along with the flow. Like you so rarely see this stuff. It's crazy. It blows my mind, honestly. And I think that a lot of it comes down from being not in the moment. And I saw it a lot with my family, so like that, whereas so rarely was anyone in the moment. And if they're in the moment, they automatically go to sleep because they're just so anxious or so tired or whatever that they crash. And I think that there's so much to it that could help so much. It really comes from a lack of doing versus doing more than you're already doing. Like, as the kids will say, I think a lot of times we're doing too much. We're putting too much effort and trying to do too much things versus taking life simply as it comes and understanding, hey, like, you know what? I could just be present, do my best in whatever's happening, and that's all I can do. Why am I stressing over things that I can't control? I can only do that. So why am I trying to make myself whatever? Why am I trying to make my life so much more difficult when I know I can't do this and I know this kind of stuff is going to happen on repeat? Like, that's the thing about it. A lot of the stuff that I feel like is a stressor is a thing that happens repeatedly. Like, work is a thing, 9 to 5, or whatever those hours are, 8 to 5, whatever. And sometimes you have to carry that home. And then you got that, so whatever, like every single day, I mean, depending on how much you work, I guess, but usually 5 days a week, whatever. Then you got, okay, let's say you're like got like kids, stuff like that, so they got all their stuff, or you got a spouse, so they got all their stuff, all the front, like family, all their stuff. All this stuff can jumble up, and a lot of it is all just about like kind of like when you eat, how you're supposed to like just eat, like chew at one at a time and then eat again, like versus it being like trying to eat it all at once. That's kind of what I feel like life has become, is that we're just trying to do so much at once that we're just like getting overwhelmed, or just like not even in the moment, versus taking life as it comes and be able to find peace and to find joy and to find all this stuff in the little things, in the things that might have been big stressors before. And finding like joy in that is incredibly valuable, and it's really, really fun, honestly. And I think it's really easy, but it takes doing tough stuff. But the process of that is not tough. It's just you just have to do the scary thing, and then you realize, oh, the scary thing is not that bad, and then you just keep doing it. And as you do it more and more, you feel more and more peace and better and all that stuff. And all that stuff pays off insanely well. But we just never give it the shot too. So we assume it's not. When if we just take the time and allowed ourselves to be in those spots, we would see it and we'd be like, wow, that's awesome. So yeah, hopefully this helps. I encourage any of you guys to just be still, just to take life as it comes versus being so overwhelmed. And I think it will help you quite a bit. It helped me a ton. So, but yeah, love you guys a bunch.